Plus, the procedure for YOLO also remains the same. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a data loading operation, data visualization operation, model loading operation, then initializing the optimizers on the loss function, and then we are going to talk about training inference. The path remains the same. We are looking at the particular things related with importing the packages. I'm still using the same torch package because it helps me to have the flexibility I want over dealing certain things. I'm gonna use I'm using the walk dataset. A walk dataset is like a walk dataset consists of 20 different labels. Basically, I'm taking up all the labels. I'm asking the YOLO VFM model to do the task of detection basically. So in a YOLO VFM model, what usually happens is our professor would be giving a detailed explanation, but I'm just gonna skim through certain things. So you would have an image. You would divide the image into bunch of grids. Each grid has the grid would have cells in them. Each cell will do a bound like a box detection, or like an anchor box basically. I wouldn't say anchor box, it's like a box detection, I would say. Yeah, so you get boxes out of it basically, out of the model. Once you get the bounding boxes out of it, you do some sort of an optimization like NMS and IOU to deal with the best box for the relevant object. Once you decide you have an object, you further also do certain task of classification, where you are able to identify what is present in that particular box and then allocate it. So we are tackling both object detection and classification in a single shot basically. We don't have two different loss function, two different architectures to deal with these both operations. We use a single architecture to solve both the problems basically. So what ideally happens is you have a network with you, and you would be dealing the image into bunch of grids. You have like a S being the size of the cell, and then you would be stating for the number of boxes you want out of each cell. Over here it's 2 basically, and then the C stands for classes. Basically we have 20. We are using the same Pascal walk that was mentioned in the paper. Yeah, so I have done the import ready. I am gonna quickly skim through the model architecture, the loss function, and the dataset. Let's take a look at the first thing is the dataset. So I have the dataset over here with me. So what in this particular scenario, in the previous session, like the faster RCNN module, we are dealing with CSV file. Over here I have it in text format given by the official Pascal walkways. So I'm taking their dataset. I am having certain XML files given to me, images and text and with. So I am trying to get all the image names from the text and then the respective information about the boxes from the XML files over here. So what I do is I borrow the information from all the XML files with given image IDs, and then I prepare my data set. That's a function just to load the images and annotations. I have the dataset class over here. Basically, I am also initializing a few transforms that I wanted to do. Horizontal flip, affine, color. That is like basic transformations that you can do, so you can make your model robust enough to withstand any outlier things during testing. It also helps to regularize your model in a better way. I have the classes, 20 classes named out. I'm basically reading the image, getting the box information, the label information as well, which is very crucial here for us now. And then I'm doing transformations on the images that I wanted, so I can resize them properly, add the necessary augmentation that I wanted to do. And then further I'm normalizing it to make sure that the model can converge in a quicker pace. So I'm also building my target dimensions as shown in the paper, 5 number of boxes and C standing for number of classes as well. That's how the architecture is meant to build. So to make sure I'm designing in the data loader itself, so it would be easy during calculating my losses further during the training phase. So one thing I wanted to tell is the model outputs in the form of x offset, y offset, and width and height. You would be having some sort of a convention like that during in model prediction. So I'm trying to align my box information to that format. So I have x1, y1, x2, y2. I'm trying to convert it to x, y, w, and h basically, and then I'm trying to normalize between 0 and 1 x. So these offsets are certain things that we need to deal with, which I'll further explain. So so these are the basically ones that are output of the model. So we would be having an XY offset and YZ offset, which will be explained during the training part. Once I have that, I'll start parsing my information for all the boxes, and then I send it as a target information. So I have my image information, I have my targets information, I have my information about the file as well, so which is almost similar to the previous one we have seen. So we are done with dataset loading operation. We are gonna take a look at the model architecture here now. The first thing is I'm using ResNet 13 as my backbone for getting certain features. So I'm gonna take the official ResNet model here. So I should be able to look. So I'll be having the official ResNet model until the final year, and then I will even resize it in a way where I have that 7 by 7 by 30, which is basically S by S. So we would be having this convention over mention. Basically, this is what your output tensor should look like. We will reshape in that way, so you have 7 by 7 by 30 basically. So we are having the initial layers borrowed from the ResNet 15, and then we are further adding a few more convolutional layers, so our model is robust enough to grasp even more further features. So you have a couple of convolutions and Bayes norm leaky ReLUs stacked up back to back basically, and once that is done, now I'm trying to output in this manner. Basically you have 5 times boxes plus a number of classes you have with you. That is what you are trying to deal out. And the forward function is pretty forward, straightforward. What I mean is, like, you get your image in, you get your features out, and you pass your convolutional layers, you get your convolution out. Basically these are like the redefined or like richer latents, I would say. Once you get your latents out, you pass through your YOLO layers, and these are like fully connected YOLO layers to even get better insights between the latent space even. And once you get out like these particular output, either of them, you would be permutating in such a way you need, like in a shape of batch size S by S, 5 times the number of boxes plus 0. So that's the exact one we are looking at in the paper. So we'll be getting output in such way. Our target is also similar in that way. So now we are dealing things back to back. We are having the data set loading with us. We are loading our train data set with us. We are having the val data set as well in the background. So we are taking up the YOLO V1 model. We started doing a training. So we keep our model in train mode and then push it to CUDA basically to run things on GPU. I'm choosing for this one my optimizer to be SGD. I'm using multi-step LR as my regularizer, which like learning rate scheduler, which I feel is the better one for this particular training. My criterion, okay, now more we have discussed about the dataset and the model. Further is to talk about the loss functions. So in just this is the loss function which will be detailedly explained in the theory class. So I'm trying to get my x offset, y offset, width and height for the respective and presence of an object. I want to make sure my model predicts the object with a good confidence threshold. I want even to predict my model to have no objects with a higher threshold as well, and then I want the objects predicted to be a right classification. So I have that number of classes over here for all the respective objects. So this is like an identifier to tell the presence of an object. I just wanted to also mention that you would be finding the square root over here. The square root is important because the model has to be really good when it comes to dealing with smaller objects as well as larger objects. The square root especially helps for the regions when the boxes are smaller. So there are for larger one is not too much, but the for smaller one is too much. So we need to tackle such kind of things. The square root is used over there. Yeah. Further going ahead, so I'm using up the loss functions, and it's just so this is kind of the math. I have put up the same math in terms of code over here. You would be having the respective shifts basically in terms of the grid cells. You have shift in X and shift in Y. I just wanted to remind you that we are dealing things in offsets basically from the center of the image, how offset is the left and top. So such kind of thing we'll be doing. That's the reason we do centering. And once that is done, we need to predict the rest. We have the predictions out of the model basically. Once we have the predictions out, we are trying further to, so the predictions of the model are in offset space, so we need to bring back from that offset space to an image space. That is what it is happening here. You have an x offset, y offset, width and height. You're trying it to convert to x1 y1, x2 y2, normals between 0 to 1, and then yeah, you can so the code explains the same. The tots dot square comes because we would be getting output in root width and root height. We are shifting it back to the original image space, so you'd be the one in the width square root happens to be a square further. Once you get that, you would be having a mean square error. That is what we were officially having here for the losses in the boxes. So once that is done, you have some loss about the box and like loss for the boxes, how good or how bad the boxes are. Once the boxes are done, basically you can get the IOU as well. Depending on the predicted boxes and the target boxes, you get your respective IOU. And once you have your best boxes out, you can start working on checking up the best confidences as well. So there could be many boxes output. You can put certain limit to a certain threshold that only these boxes which are having certain threshold greater than that, I want them to be penalized. The rest of that are not necessary. So this particular helps you to deal with that. And once that is done, we have our predictions. Basically we do get the bounding box losses, which is basically the localization loss. Oh, I see. Okay, so this is the localization loss over here we are dealing with. And then we further also have, so now we have done all this operation before because we wanted to deal only with the objects that has high amount of good amount of threshold that we wanted to do. Once we get the boxes which has certain number of threshold, we start doing classification loss further. So we do even the classification loss for the objects that are present. Object indicator tells that the particular object is present, so that's for your classification. And then objective loss also indicates that to tell if the object is present or not. And the classification loss tells about if the one that is given the does it predict the right object is present or not. Basically, one is to determine if the object is present or not. The second one is to the first one is to tell that the classification loss tells about if the object predicted is like a cat or is it a dog, something like that. Basically, we have two different losses for them. Once we get that, we also have the fourth one, which is basically the no objectness loss. This is the last one over here. We get the particular thresholds out of it as well, and then we calculate the same way how we have created how we have calculated for the object loss as well. Once we get them, we multiply with all of them. We add up all of them basically one after the other, and then divide by patch size because we don't want it to blow up. We want to normalize it basically, and then we are returning the loss function. So that's how the loss works. So we have the criterion where YOLO V1 loss does that. Now once that is done, so we have initialized the model, we have initialized the loss as well. Now we are getting the image and its respective targets. We have the criterion to get our losses. Once the loss is given, once the loss we have calculated, now we start doing we start optimizing our weights basically. So we calculate the gradients and then optimize our model to make sure that it achieves the least loss basically. Once that is done, I am trying to save my model for each epoch basically, and then I would wanted to further infer, so I would be saving the model all the time. The scheduler.step helps you to reduce your learning rate accordingly to your epoch size basically. I'm having a YAML file to load up all my configurations because there are too many configurations. The configurations would have information about the dataset path and stuff. Once I have that, I start training my model. I have trained for a limited number of epochs, but even on the limited number of epochs, I was able to achieve a decent amount of performance. Now, I started, okay, the inference also would likely to be the same as well as like close to the fast RCN we have seen before. You just make the dataset path correct, and make the dataset correct. You get the samples out of it. You do the predictions. You do NMS and thresholding operations. Once you get the thresholding operations, you start evaluating them. So this is how it would look like. Okay, one of my prediction was not that great, but if you see, for at least you can see that the boxes weren't that confident, but you can see the predicted pixels to be the cow the same. Yeah, we have over here a TV monitor which is decently good, but it is having a lower threshold. Maybe training on even a higher amount of, like higher number of epochs will help me to achieve even better accuracy. We have the car being detected with a proper box. I see still some offset was there, but still more number of dataset samples, even better network architectures can help you to push the boundaries of the accuracy. So I have other one is the car. Yeah. So with this, I conclude about the training of the YOLO basically, and we also have seen the inference as well for the YOLO model even. So further iterations do exist, or further versions of the YOLO even exist. The last one was YOLO V10. I have seen. So there were so many versions of YOLO. Each one updated with minimalistic changes on top. So we don't have any proper anchor box setup in the YOLO V1 version. Whereas from YOLO V2, to make sure the boxes are constrained to a proper region, they started placing up the anchor boxes. And further versions have even a few versions have added anchor boxes, a few versions have removed the anchor boxes, few versions have maintained really state of art inferencing technology where they can do real time. They have really good FPS basically. The final thing I wanted to show about is we have fast RCN and YOLO, the comparison between them. The error there's a the error in YOLO remains same in the version 1 due to is because of the localization error, and one, so the YOLO is pretty fast. We are having around 45 FPS we are looking at here, whereas the fast RCN and bit is having a very low FPS. So one of the reasons YOLO being popular is because there are no two architectures over here. We have a single architecture that you can deal both the classification task and the detection task at the same time basically, but with trading of the MAP. But we are able to achieve a decent amount of accuracy trade-off, but with a really good state-of-art FPS back in those days. The current architectures can even perform better, and all the codes are open source from the YOLO's end, so people can take a look further for upgrades and stuff. Yeah.